I've had the pleasure and privilege of working with hundreds of performers, executives, and entrepreneurs. And what every one of them will tell you is that I have helped them to conserve the most precious resource that we have. And of course, immediately you're going to go to time. Time is the most precious resource that any of us have. And I am going to challenge that conception, show you what is more precious, and that when you're able to master that resource, you will have more time, more freedom, and of course, more resources. Hey, I'm Roz Clark, the Dream Doula. And like I said, I help transform lives, businesses, and relationships. So let's jump right on into it. What we tend to waste, even more than time, is imagination. We waste our imagination. And you're like, well, Roz, what does imagination have to do with anything? And what it actually is everything. Because if you can imagine it, then you can conceive it. And yet, if you spend your time imagining things that won't serve you, replaying situations that hold you back or make you, resentful, then you're not using your most precious commodity. So let's look at this thing. How does imagination transform lives? I love Bob Proctor always said, if you can hold it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. There have been many, many other people who have shared that philosophy. Reverend Ike, Michael Beckworth, Oprah, Tony Robbins. There's so many people who have played on such a large scale and a large stage because they understood the power of imagination. So when people tell you something like, imagine this, like that's the first thing you do. It's like, oh, wow, you lean in because imagine this. Or even if you're having that moment of, oh man, imagine if I could. So let's look at how we use the resource, the gift, the tool that is imagination, and how we typically waste it. So one of the ways that we waste imagination is we keep replaying outdated stories. We keep rehearsing and rehashing things over and over and over again. And like we stay mad about people who don't even care about shit that doesn't even matter anymore. And yet we're still angry. We're still replaying that outdated story. So take a moment. Like, what is your story? What is that story that just gets under your skin, or that you remember it? Like, I was in third grade and Mrs. So and so said I would never be anything. Like, you're still mad at stuff that happened when you were a child, or, and some of them are, they really were hurtful things. And yet you are a full grown individual and you are still rehashing a story that doesn't serve you. Or maybe you were in a bad relationship. Maybe a business deal went bad. Maybe somebody really did do you wrong. And yet if you keep playing that story over and over and over again, you are wasting imagination. Like, you're replaying, well, I should have said this and then I could have said that, and like, what if you shifted that? What if you shifted that imagination and you began to imagine that next big project that you want to work on, that next trip that you want to take, that next experience that you want to have with somebody who means a great deal to you? Imagine that. Start playing that story over and over and over again in your mind in a way that lights you up, in a way that makes you to begin to like vibrate on a whole nother level. Because people talk about it all the time. There are high vibrations and low vibrations. So if you're still stuck in this low vibrating energy that doesn't serve you because something happened and you're still playing a role. You're playing a role of a victim. You're playing a role of it's not fair. And look, baby, life is not fair. Like I'll tell you straight up, straight no chaser. There are some things in life that just are not friggin' fair. And again, though, if you hold that energy, like you think about people who did stuff to you and like, they ain't thinking about you. They have gone on with their lives. Or you're worried about, well, karma's going to get them. So you're so busy looking for karma to get them that you're not concentrating on what you want to get, what your next looks like, what you're thinking about, what you're longing for, what you're imagining. And the more that you imagine that thing that you want and you see it and you feel it, because that's the beauty of imagination. It's also the challenge, but let's focus on the beauty of imagination right now. You start feeling what it will feel like. For my artists, I used to tell them, feel what it would feel like to stand on that stage, to hear that applause, to see the audience lighting up, or to see your name on a screen. Like imagine what that feels like. Get connected to that energy, to that feeling. Or, like I said, if it's something you want to do with loved ones, like imagine that you are the one that is hosting some beautiful event for the people that you love. Maybe it's a destination event and you're hosting it and you're standing surrounded by that love. Now, not the people who give you grief. You're only going to bring the people who bring you joy. And you have an opportunity to give them joy, to bring them together, to bring that love together, to bring that energy together. You see how that creates a different energy, a different experience. Because again, whatever energy, like Tony Robbins says, where focus goes, energy flows. So if you're focused on the wrong, if you're focused on what was unfair, if you're focused on how did they get away with it, you don't know what their story is and you don't need to know. Like you may know what they did to you. And, of course, we got to own our part in that. And yet, instead of focusing on that energy, it's over, it's done. Release it, let it go, and begin to, like I said, just imagine what your next looks like. Name your next, and then begin to be present with the beauty and the feeling and the joy of what next looks like. So stop replaying outdated stories. So another way that we waste imagination, and I've kind of touched on it a little bit, but I want to be specific about this, is anticipating outcomes that don't serve you. Like there are some people who just think of the worst, and even if something good happens, they're like, well, it's not going to last, or, as soon as I get money, something goes wrong and then I got to pay it out, and so you're anticipating an outcome that doesn't serve you. So you're living your life in dread. You're living your life thinking about what will happen, that what's going to happen, not like what can happen, but what's going to happen. I don't know how many of you had parents who worried about everything, like, don't do that or you're going to get hurt. Or what was the comedian that said, you're going to put somebody's eye out? Like there are parents like that, they put that fearful energy into their children, like, well, don't do that. Don't go there. Be careful. And it's not that we shouldn't be mindful. Like we don't want to just be stuck on stupid and go do things that put us in harm's way. And yet we cannot always be anticipating an outcome that's going to be to our detriment, or we're thinking about something horrible happened and we're in a great moment, like we're in a beautiful moment, and it's like, yeah, but we'll probably break up, or yeah, but we'll probably fall out, or whatever that is. And so you're so afraid of what's going to happen that you don't know how to lean into what is possible, what can happen. So not the, oh no, oh no, oh no. What's that? Oh no, oh no, oh no, no, no. Instead, like think about the possibilities. Again, think about anticipating those things that will serve you. So if you're planning an event, think about everything being perfect. All the food coming out warm at the perfect time. Everybody having a beautiful time. If you're going to do a presentation, like I work again with a lot of artists and executives. So, like a lot of my people do keynote speeches. So again, we start working on first we get the topic. What is the topic that you want to talk about? Okay, now what is the transformation that you want your people to have? And then we work from the end to the beginning. So the ending is everybody is so deeply moved by what you've shared. Everybody has a new way of thinking and experiencing, and the applause end, and then you come off the stage and people are lined up to talk to you and tell you like, oh my God, I felt like you were talking just to me. Oh my goodness, like I'll never be the same after this. So thinking about anticipating what could happen or what should happen, or most importantly, what you want to happen. Because too often, if you're focused on outcomes that you don't want, you don't allow yourself to want. Like how many of you, or not how many, I'm talking to you right now. How often do you say, I'm not going to allow myself to wish? I'm not going to allow myself to get worked up because I don't want to be disappointed again. And so you deny yourself even the joy of anticipation. Because if we're doing what we do, we're doing what we love, we're going after what we want and what we love. And yet, if we self sabotage before that even happens, like, I'd love it to happen, but it never does, or how's that going to happen, or how, like that whole thing, then you don't give yourself an opportunity to experience what you're capable of. And again, it happens in your mind. It happens in your emotion long before it happens in the physical realm. So you create a pathway for it to come through. And that pathway is your joy. That pathway is your excitement. Your pathway is your anticipation and the outcomes that, like, I really want this to happen. Like, I do this every time, certainly every time I speak, and yet even every time that I record an episode. So whether it's a solo episode and I am talking to that one person who needed to hear this message. So instead of saying, well, is it going to go viral? How many people will it reach? E-I-E-I-O. If it reaches the one person who needed to hear from me today, or needed to hear from me the moment they click on this video, as the contracts say, in perpetuity, I can't say the word right now, but like if they in, I don't know, 20, 30, 20, 40, whenever it is, and yet this message reaches that person, like I've done my job. It keeps rolling forward. Think about that. There may only be one person who needs to see you, who needs to hear from you, who needs your message, whether that message be in a song, in a speech, in a book, in a piece of content. There is somebody who's waiting to hear from you. And yet, if you're focused on what won't work, how do you give it an opportunity for it to work? Or you're tied in a situation that you feel like no longer serves you, and yet you won't make the move to take the next right step. Your voice matters. What you have to share matters. So think about, what is your story? If it is a story that no longer serves you, if it is a story about what is unfair, if it is a story about how did this happen and it was horrible, and like some things happen and they are horrible, whether it is a natural disaster, whether it is how you experience death, the death of somebody that you love, however you experience that, again, their time is complete. And how do you move forward? How do you move forward holding on to the joy, holding on to the beauty, and releasing the disappointment, releasing the pain? And it doesn't happen overnight, and yet it is a choice. We get to choose how we respond to circumstances. So again, if somebody was dishonest, if someone was unkind, we can't change that. We can change the power that we allow it to have over the rest of our lives. So ask yourself, what is my story? What am I still angry, resentful, whatever it is? And then how do I take the next step to release it and let it go? And let's add one more piece to it. Let's replace it with something that you do want. What do you want? And take the limits off. If you could have anything that you want, wave a magic wand and it happens. What would it be? Within the realm of possibility for you, not attached to somebody else. What is that next right thing for you? What is that you want? And then here is the other way, and we all do this, that we waste our imagination. And that is listening to voices that don't matter. And that goes back to what we were holding on to before. Well, so-and-so said it. And I don't even care if it's your mama. If your mother said it to you, she could be wrong. Matter of fact, I'll just go out on a limb and say she is wrong, because you get to choose who you become. You do not have to stay trapped and attached to a version of you that no longer exists, because that is the beautiful thing about life. We continue to unfold. We continue to evolve. We get to change our minds. Look, I changed my mind after 30 years. I said I do, and then I said I won't anymore. So we get to change our minds. We are not stuck in a situation forever. So we don't want to listen to voices that don't matter. And like a contemporary example of that is, I think it is the clap back for the ages. Like Stephen A. Smith had dissed Serena Williams and like she shouldn't be that, and she's worried about that. And it was all around her doing the sea walk at the I almost said the Emmys, but it was the Super Bowl. But anyway, he had this twisted version of like, if he was her husband, he wouldn't have stood for it, and she cared about somebody else, and E-I-E-I-O. And so Serena's husband ended up on Stephen's show, and he took the moment to say, I am a billionaire who coaches billionaires on how to be billionaires. Like, if I weren't married, I wouldn't be trying to give somebody advice on how to be married. So I just stay in my lane. And it was just the most boss and bomb clap back ever. Because it was like, dude, I'm making billions, and you worried about me worrying about my wife doing a dance that is, indigenous to where she's from. So again, listening to voices that don't matter, instead of listening, first of all, into that listening to that internal voice, that still and quiet knowing that this is for me. This is what I'm called to. This is what greater looks like and feels like. And you know that voice. Because what I have found is that voice speaks to us throughout our lives. And we can stuff it down, push it away, whatever. And yet it will keep coming back to us, giving us the opportunity to live into our gift, our greatness, and our calling. So stop listening to voices that don't matter. You know, if you're surrounded by people who don't celebrate you or people who downplay your dreams and your vision and your gifts, that's not your tribe. And I tell people all the time, I don't care if it's your family. Family is not forever if family does not support and celebrate you. You have the option of saying, yes, we were born into a family, but I do not have to keep you and your energy in my life. There are people who are afraid. Like I know in my life, because I was young and I was vibrant and I was this free spirit and I was a creative. And so there were people who were afraid of me and there were people who were afraid for me. Like, oh, she's going to get disappointed. She's going to have her hopes dashed. So let's crush them now, and it's like, no, thank you, but no, and like, had I listened to those voices, I wouldn't have turned 21 in Paris on tour singing as a classical soprano. Like, had I listened to those voices, I would not have done that. So, what voices have you listened to or are you listening to currently that are holding you back from who you are called to be, what you are meant to be? That still small, quiet voice, child, check in with that one. Listen to that voice. It will not steer you wrong. And so again, when you listen to that voice, then don't tell yourself stories that are anticipating, an outcome that you don't want based upon some outdated stories. Like, listen to that voice and lean in to the possibility. So that is it in a nutshell. Imagination is the greatest tool that we have, because when we imagine the life of our dreams, a life filled with joy and vibrancy and purpose, with the resources to do the things that we want, to care for and serve the people who matter, we have time. Because you can pay people so that you have more time. So we can't buy years back, and yet we can pay to free up our time. So that is why our imagination is the most valuable resource that we have, because our imagination creates the life, the opportunities, the relationships, all of the things that matter most for us to become the best and highest version of ourselves. And so for me, I took that information as I was making my transition in my life, and I created what I call the Rebirth framework. And it's a very simple framework. You reconnect with the person that you've always known yourself to be. You release what no longer serves you, and you rewrite the story that you've been telling yourself, and you write a better story with a better outcome. After me, you're first. Yes, after me, you're first. Do you want to just say that out loud sometime? Like, you have been there for everyone else. You have checked all the boxes. You have done everything by the rules. You have played the game according to the rules. And yet now you're in that space that says, is this all there is? There's got to be more. And here's the good news. There absolutely is more. There is more joy, vibrancy, and purpose available to you. And you just have to stake your claim and say that very thing. It's my turn now. And I created the Awaken Your Dream virtual retreat to help you do just that, to reclaim your dream, to reclaim your voice, to create the impact about the things that matter most to you. You've done all the right things, and now it's time to do right by you. This is your chance to step up, to move forward, to embrace those things that you are so passionate about. And to be honest, the thing that the world needs most from you and for you right now. It's okay to do what matters most to you. It's okay to make sure that you're okay. So join me for the Reclaim Your Dream virtual retreat. It is the reset that your soul has been longing for. Together, we will map out your next. We will name your next and map out your next. So click the link to get more information, and I look forward to seeing you and serving you. Be well. Peace. So I have some courses and some resources around that, and I'll leave a couple of links in the description notes. But if you want to learn more about how you can apply this rebirth framework to your life, reach out to me, leave a comment. I'll make sure that we connect, and I'll create, we can create opportunities for you to take a deeper dive. But for now, right now, just make sure that you are using that beautiful and precious gift of imagination. Imagine yourself living your best and highest life. Like Willy Wonka, come with me and we'll see a world of pure imagination. Like, use your imagination in the most beautiful and fulfilling way. And until then, I remind you to stay connected. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, hit the bell to get notified so you always know when I'm dropping content, leave a comment, share this with somebody that you think who will benefit from it. And let's just keep the conversation going, because like I say all the time, it is a conversation. I want to hear from you. I will definitely respond back to you. So until then, I remind you to continue to think big and dream even bigger. I'll see you soon. Peace.